Every single day, your mind is just cranking away, solving hundreds of problems. But have you ever stopped to think about how it actually does that? Turns out there's this kind of hidden architecture to our problem solving, a journey that pretty much always follows one of two fundamental paths. So today, let's map out that journey together. So let's start with a really simple question. When you're up against a challenge, what's your first move? Do you look for an established map, a clear set of directions to the answer? Or are you the kind of person who grabs a blank sheet of paper and just starts drawing your own route? The answer? Well, it reveals a lot more about you than you might think. The material we're digging into today visualizes this choice perfectly. Just picture it. You're standing at a fork in the road. On one side, you've got this guided green path. It's paved, it's predictable, and it leads straight to a known destination. But on the other side, a winding red path of pure possibility. It's unpaved, you're blazing the trail yourself, and it's full of who knows what kind of twists and discoveries. All right, let's start by walking down that first path, the green one, the path of certainty. This is the world of structure, of logic, and that really satisfying feeling of finding the one single right answer. Okay, so the official name for this approach is convergent thinking, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like a funnel for all your ideas. The whole point is to use logic, facts, everything you already know, to filter out all the noise and converge on that one single, well-defined solution. And, this way of thinking absolutely thrives in certain environments. Think about highly structured, hierarchical systems, like a lot of traditional companies or big government agencies. They're basically built on convergent thinking. You've got established rules, clear procedures, and a very predictable path forward for almost everything. And this really breaks down the logical calculation that goes on when you choose that structured path. You're weighing the financial incentives, right? The money. You're balancing that against your desire for autonomy, for freedom. You're looking at the regulatory environment, the rules of the game, and you're thinking about your level of trust in whoever's in charge. It's a decision-making process that's just perfectly suited for that convergent, logical brain of ours. And there's actually a really good reason our brains are so drawn to this. Psychologists have a term for it, the concreteness effect. It just means our minds are literally wired to grab onto and remember tangible, specific ideas way more easily than fuzzy, abstract ones. And that path of certainty, it speaks that concrete language fluently. And this is the perfect example. Think about a classic SAT question. It is the ultimate arena for convergent thinking, right? You've got rules of math to apply, there's a specific process you can follow, and at the end of the day, there's only one single correct answer to find. No room for debate, no interpretation. The answer is 400. Period. That's it. Okay, but what about all the problems where there isn't one right answer? Well, for those, you need a completely different approach. So it's time to leave that nice paved road behind and start exploring the path of possibility. And this is the world of divergent thinking. So instead of narrowing down to one answer, the goal here is to expand outward. It's about generating a whole spectrum of creative ideas for those messy, open-ended problems. So this isn't a funnel, it's more like a fireworks display of possibilities. This thinking style is all about getting your hands dirty. It's about embracing curiosity, just diving headfirst into messy brainstorming sessions, and having the guts to take some risks. This is the true engine of creativity right here. So divergent thinking, it really lives in the realm of the abstract. I mean, think about it. What is the single right answer to what makes a good education or what makes a landscape beautiful? There isn't one, right? These are concepts that are totally dependent on your personal experience, your goals, your interpretation. The source material gives this really beautiful, kind of poetic example, looking at a Caribbean seascape. The questions it poses aren't looking for a factual answer. They invite you to wonder, to interpret, to just imagine. And that is a classic divergent challenge. It's all about generating new questions, not just finding one final answer. So let's just hit pause for a second and look at these two modes side by side. You've got convergent thinking with all the arrows pointing inward to that single factual solution. And then you have divergent thinking, where ideas are just exploding outward in a search for new possibilities. They're two totally distinct toolkits for two very, very different kinds of problems. But here's where it gets really, really interesting. These two paths, they are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the most effective thinkers, the real innovators, they don't just pick one road and stay on it. They build a bridge between them. So the big takeaway here is this. It is not about choosing a side. The real question isn't which path is better. It's when do I use each one? The most powerful, most elegant solutions come from knowing exactly how to travel between them. And this is what we call the thinking cycle, and it is such a powerful loop. Here's how it works. First, you diverge. You brainstorm freely. You generate as many wild, unfiltered ideas as you possibly can. That's the creative explosion. Then you switch gears and you converge. You bring in the logic, the analysis, to filter, refine, and select the single most promising idea to actually move forward with. And then you just repeat. The outcome of one phase just fuels the next. And that, right there, is the engine of innovation. It's not just the explosion of ideas, and it's not just the logical funnel. Real breakthroughs, the big aha moments, they happen in that constant fluid journey between the two. So, how do we actually apply this stuff? Because this isn't just some abstract theory. Understanding this cycle gives you a really practical framework for becoming a more effective, more adaptable thinker in literally every part of your life. See, the real skill isn't about being good at just one or the other. It's about building up your mental toolkit so you have both. It's knowing when a problem calls for the funnel and when it calls for the fireworks. And when you get good at this cycle, it completely transforms how you work. For you as an individual, it means better, more adaptable, more creative decisions. And for teams, it's the antidote to that stale, rigid, this is how we've always done it thinking. It creates a real culture of innovation where everybody knows when it's time to brainstorm and when it's time to build. So when it all comes down to it, the goal isn't to stick a label on yourself to say, I'm a convergent thinker or I'm a divergent thinker. No way. The real skill is becoming the navigator, the person who can look at the map of any problem and just know instinctively whether it's time to follow the marked trail or if it's time to start drawing a completely new one. So I want to leave you with this challenge. The very next problem you face, I don't care if it's big or small, just stop for a second and ask yourself, does this moment need a single right answer or does it need a whole universe of new questions? Because the path you choose, that's going to make all the difference.